and I really want to share with all you listening, is how available, how close, how earthbound this presence of comfort is. I call it the Holy Spirit because that was the word that was given to me. Hello, my dear friends. My name is Aletheia Sophia, and I am sat here in the French Pyrenees in a region known for its Cathar history. My spiritual story began in the strangest of all places, actually. It began in a Catholic church. I am not a Catholic. I was not able to receive any of the sacraments, but my dad asked for me to receive a blessing. And I was about 12 years old and a little bit reluctant and a little bit like, oh, Dad, really? And the beautiful priest did the sign of the cross above my head and said something along the lines of, "May the Holy Spirit be upon you." Well, to my utter surprise, a great wind, it felt like a cold wind, blew through my body, and it made me cry and look at Dad and say something along the lines of, "What is happening? What is happening?" I was not expecting, nor did I particularly want something to happen, but it caught me off guard. And that day I walked home with my dad through the park, heart completely open, crying at the flowers, crying at the grass, crying at the children and the dogs playing, and not knowing, like, oh, how am I going to close my heart again? And Dad was like, "Why on earth do you want to do such a thing?" Anyway, that set in motion a hunger and a thirst to find that feeling again. But I wasn't particularly drawn to religion. I knew this is where I found it, but I don't really want to sign up for that. I want to find this elsewhere, including there, but more than just there. And so I began my journey. And then it happened again about a year later. I was coming down the steps of the Sacré-Cœur in Paris, the Sacred Heart, huge church in Paris. It's up high, and you've got a beautiful staircase all the way down to Montmartre. And Montmartre is very famous for its artists and its paintings and people selling their crafts. And as I was coming down that staircase, on my left there appeared to be a homeless man begging. His hands were like that and his head was down. And I was very, very, very drawn to him. And so I crouched in front of him and put my hands on top of his. And he looked up and we had eye contact. I'm still a child at this point. And I realized, there it is again. There is that cold breeze of something holy. So then I knew, aha, it does exist in other unexpected. When I had that experience on the steps of Sacré-Cœur, remembering I'm still a child at this point, the overall message, we didn't talk, but the overall message I got was, you're not alone, dear girl, dear child, you're not alone. There's many of us here. We're all here and we're all in secret service. We've been planted in exactly the right place and we are doing exactly the right thing, even if we don't know we're even doing that. I just got that overall feeling. There's a whole tribe here, and inside our hearts, we know each other. After that, it was very much a heart opening process. Not an enlightenment. There wasn't no sense of, top heavy, my head full of light, and that I'd ascended Nothing like that. It was purely located in the chest. This was a love awakening. This was a heart opening. I could feel everything, everyone. And I was very available to, if I'm listening to someone, I will really listen. I guess it's like an empathy. So I had an empathic, that's a good one, an empathic awakening. I wasn't numb anymore. I could feel what people were sharing with me. You could say the Holy Spirit was within me. And how it got in there, because I wasn't, as I said, I wasn't a religious person, but nevertheless, it got into me and I held onto it for dear life. And to me, the Holy Spirit is a comforting presence, a consoling presence, ever, ever available. It loves, it protects, it shields, it comforts, it consoles, it brings wisdom, it brings insight, it tells the truth. It's the most loveliest presence, and very much here on the earth, walking amongst us. This huge connection with divinity on the earth. Ever since these first encounters that I've shared with you, in the church and Steps of Sancre-Cœur, the closest label I could put on it was Christ, or Jesus Christ, and the early Christian movement. As I said, once this early Christian movement started establishing itself as a hierarchy, as churches, as religion, I'm a little bit put off. But I'm very, very awake and hungry to know more about the very, very early days and how that looked and how people worshipped and what was their lifestyle like. So that's where I started researching. That's where I started reading. And the material I was reading, and then of course contemplating it inside with the Holy Spirit, asking for more verification or more understanding or more insight, I was able to bring like the logical part of my mind that was reading and the imaginative part of my mind that was communing with the Holy Spirit and putting it all together. And I realized, wow, this is most definitely the way to use the mind. Don't just rely on one half. You gotta activate both those qualities, logic and imagination, which then years, decades later, you could say logic, logos, imagination, Sophia, wisdom. And so I've been traveling this path of seeming opposing opposites all this time, realizing that when there's like a beneficial opposition, that's when we grow. That's when things get really interesting, because you've got two very alive forces, automatically, it seems, very, very drawn together. But us humans, we don't really like the fact that they're very, very drawn together. We prefer one or the other one. You could say like in and out, left and right, up and down, light and dark. They're very attracted to one another because they are one another. It's the two poles of the magnet. The truth is the magnet. And that's where all of this has led. It's led to a more mystical understanding, a more mystical mind, brain, that looks at the opposition, the two opposing forces, and sort of welcomes their arrival, recognizing, wow, these two are very much needed for this transformation, this breakthrough, this understanding, this healing to happen. I have noticed in the last, I would say, 3 years, since the COVID and the locking down and all of that business, that there has been a huge resurgence in born again Christianity, which I am very happy to see. But I sort of also notice a little bit of fundamentalism, a little bit of an extreme. People have gone, say, from the New Age, they've gone over to a heavily, it feels, religious form of Christianity, and now they're turning back at the New Age or the esoteric world or the pagan things that they may have been into, saying, this is not good, what you're doing is not good. And I'm thinking, no, 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 the battle rages on. All you've done is you've changed sides. Yes, there's those opposing forces again, but remember, folks, it's not a good idea to choose one over the other, and definitely, definitely not oppose the other. So one, particularly the community I've been in, many of the folks were into like a new age version of spirituality. I imagine the COVID situation scared them profoundly, and so they moved over very quickly to discovery of a new religion, or not a new religion to them. But now they look back at where they were and are heavily judging and almost demonizing what they were once part of. And that is not the best place to end up in, because you haven't really changed. You haven't really transformed from the New Age to the Christian movement. It's still the same game. So I feel there's more development that needs to be done if there's going to be a early Christian renaissance. It's not to look back and condemn where you were. Not at all, not at all. That's the religious part that came along 4 centuries after Jesus Christ. Let's stick with what was happening in those early days, when there was no dogma, there was no hierarchy. It was a simple, pure grassroots movement, voluntarily, lovingly trodden, a path lovingly trodden. It's a challenge how we can fix that when we are in a place of opposition. Human nature likes to believe it is right and the other one is wrong. This is the dilemma of our current world crisis. How do we fix that? All I have is an ongoing body of work. How do I fix that? I fix that by having a little bit of awareness, that realizing I'm in that. I'm in opposition. I'm in opposition with someone, something, some situation. I remember in my mystical heart the big truth, capital T, there is no opposition. Opposing forces are in fact one, and they themselves have a natural inclination to come together. They simply are drawn together. Light attracts dark, dark attracts light, in attracts out, out attracts in, left attracts right, right attracts left. If I can just take a little breath, breathing that truth in for a moment before I start my argument of how right I am and how wrong you are, I might be able to stop that dualistic argument, war, crisis, division. But because I'm still so young, in this method of absolutely extracting myself from dualistic thinking and living and behaving, I can't tell you what the answer is yet, because I'm still trying to figure it out. But I do know the heart has the answer. I do know when you take a humble breath, that charge to argue back softens. And maybe at this moment, when we don't have answers, the answer is do say nothing instead of the arguing, instead of the conflict. Not fall asleep and go passive. Do say nothing, fully awake, fully available for something new to be said, for something new to happen, but just simply stopping the conflict, stopping the opposing force coming through you with a desire to create trouble. We want to create transformation, not trouble, transformation. So this is the question of the day, I think. In this process I've been describing, this spiritual union, perhaps with the Holy Spirit, yes, you're able to feel God in a new and different way every time, although it's pretty much the same way. That sounded totally paradoxical, meaning I, the human, might be wanting to look at God at this angle, or to learn more from perhaps this angle. And yes, I meet a new part of God, but it's always actually the same, which is love. More love, deeper love, profound love, astonishing love, truthful love. So I'm not really finding out data or information. But what you do discover is immediately within you. That's another biggie. It's not out there. This relationship, this union. Should I encounter another aspect of God, for instance, it's simultaneously alive inside of me as me. And that's a superpower. Apart from it's not a superpower. It's like the more you know God, the more loving you become. That's a nicer way of putting it. The more you go towards God, the more you have to offer to others. And I think that's very clever. I'm like, God, that is clever. You know, no wonder you are the seat of all wisdom. Because it's never about holding on. You're not holding on to what you've discovered all to yourself. You cannot help but share it. It just spills out in the most strangest ways, like in the supermarket when you're pushing your trolley. You can't stop it from coming out. It's amazing. We are in a process that is taking us toward the new earth, a new age, a golden age. But there is no escaping that the old version is gonna wither and crumple up before our very eyes. That is the process. We can't get to the new age or the golden age without this other part dissolving and crumpling, like autumn and winter. You've got to go through autumn and winter to reach spring and summer. Now, if you have that little friend around that I've been mentioning, I call it the Holy Spirit, you can call it whatever you wish, you will have an anchor, you will have courage, you will have a spirit of peace, despite perhaps being surrounded by conflict and war, and you will be able to migrate from this old world that we were born into and start implementing foundational stones, industries, infrastructure, whatever it is, creativity, books, music, dance, you yourself will contribute to the golden age that is coming. Should you have that awakefulness, that joy, joy is a big one, I feel, that peace and that love and that connection, you'll have the strength to bring it through, because we're gonna see and feel the old one give way and bottom out. Humanity right now, my goodness, we're in the eye of the storm. Well, no, because the eye of the storm is calm. We're not in the eye of the storm. We're swirling around this storm, and especially today, you know, I won't even mention what's happening today, but it's an important day in a certain place on the earth. There's so many frontiers of this conflict, these opposing forces, warring. But the thing is, and this is my point, war is the old way of working with the opposing force, and it's a destructive way, and it gives way to death. And this is really old modalities. These two opposing forces, they are not going to go away. They are part of being here on this earth. We must find a solution where the two opposing forces can thrive. So, you know, a quick thing would be to go, oh, we have to make peace. Us humans, the only peace we have made is an enforced peace. It's a peace that has a very powerful army surrounding it, going, you guys better stay peaceful. That's not peace. That's not peace. And we do the same thing with the contents of our head. That's not peace. I'm not sure we actually know what peace is yet, but it's the third answer. We can't figure this out with a dualistic mind, because the dualism is the opposition, the opposing forces. We need the third entity, the third aspect, the third answer to come through. And at the moment, there is a storm all around us, all around each and every single one of us, every continent, every country, every culture, trying to entice us back into dualism, opposing forces. You fight them, or you oppose them. And we got to, as I said, we got to stop and take that breath before we join in and search for that third response, that third answer, that third mode of behavior that we haven't even thought to think about. And should enough of us start implementing, you know, a third section to our brain, or a third section to our heart, or wherever it is our decisions get made, then those people will be implementing the golden age, because the golden age requires 3 sections to the brain, not 2. And once we've got this new decision-making process operative with that third part, we can start creating. The artists amongst us, the musicians amongst us, the politicians, all aspects of life can start using that new part of the brain for creativity, and then the whole thing will appear and flourish. I imagine. Well, I think the US elections is a perfect example of those two opposing forces again. You can't get any more clearer than what's happening now with Harris and Trump. So Where is the third option? Well, there's no candidate that's the third option. That would be great, but it's not. Therefore, we must somehow create a third option in our own minds, because whichever way it goes today, I think only one thing's gonna happen, and that's just gonna be backlash and kickback, whoever gets the seat. So there's an inevitability about today, that there's just so much momentum that's built up. All it can do is just live itself out. We cannot stop what's going to happen. Have no idea what's going to happen, but there's a heck of a lot of energy, and it's just got to live itself out. Perhaps because it could be, this is all trajectory, this is all, the rantings of my own mind. Because it could be extremely intense, the next time there's an election, there really will be a third candidate, because this opposing thing just cannot keep happening. This is the biggest problem on our planet. So that could be the great gift that comes from today. Never and again, never again, in the West or in America, will there be two possibilities of leadership, because that just makes the people flipping crazy. So that could come out of today. I think where I'm going to put my mind is what happens as of today is the third option, because this just has to happen. This could potentially be the worst of all times, and this just has to happen. So there's some acceptance, there's a softening in the heart. Haven't put my head in the sand and pretending it's not happening. I'm very attuned to what's happening. It will definitely affect us all somehow, somewhere, somewhen. So I have faith and trust. This just has to happen, because this is the big engine of change right now, birthing and bringing it through. That's probably how I'm gonna be viewing things. I believe with or without humanity, this new earth is already being born. It's not going to appear, it's already here. It's already here. And I must confess, where I am in the Pyrenees, in the mountains, there's not too much trouble here. The trouble is here. This is where I'm working with the conflict and the war, and it's pretty intense. Whereas other folks really are facing a war right outside their front doorstep. I can see that this new earth is already appearing. So I don't have a question, I don't even have half a question. Is it or is it not going to happen? It's going to happen, definitely. It's already happening. You can't stop what is already happening. The question is how many of us will be there to also participate and contribute. And of course, my generation, maybe not. But your generation and the one after, got to be prepared to be a forerunner, you see, a pioneer. A pioneer doesn't necessarily get to enjoy that which it's pioneering. It just pioneers, it just goes forward, just to open the way for the ones behind, the ones coming after you. Okay, folks, well, it has been an absolute honor to speak with you and to reach into a larger community at this hour. I hope what I've said has given you a little cheer in your heart and you can actually feel some light. That would be amazing. You can find me Mostly, I'm an old-fashioned person, so I'm more of a Facebooker and an Instagrammer. You can just type my name in and find me there. But you know what? I really want to hear back from you. Do you have any questions? Do you have anything you just want to share and comment? If so, please put it in a little box down below so that we can carry on this conversation. I'm going to be looking in, having a little read, commenting. I am overjoyed in a strange sort of way that our interview happened today, 5th of November, US elections. Very important turning point, I'm pretty sure. It's wonderful for me